Hello everyone, Prime here. On Twitter, we got this. Which means we're going to be talking about Slavic mythology and potential gods that are going to show up in the game, might show up in the game. I should really pick my words carefully here. Jumping right into this, we have Dudola, or Dodola. She was the wife of Perun who flies over woods and fields, and she has the ability to make plants blossom when she does this. Usually she does this during the spring though. When she milks her heavenly cows, this is actually believed to be the reason why rain falls. And I mention her purely because we have gods like Thor and Zeus, to a degree Odin, who are gods of rain. Chuck's pretty much the only one out of them, and perhaps Zeus's ult could give you this vibes, but Chuck is the only one with a direct skill relating to his ability to summon the rain. Zeus does make lightning rain down on people with his ult, but that's lightning, not rain. And even Chuck's ability is a bit meh. I mean, you can expand it a bit, and then make rain fall in a larger area, and it slows people. You'll heal Chuck, and only Chuck. But this is a chance for Hi-Rez, a golden opportunity to give gods of rain a pretty decent kit, or at least a goddess of rain, no less. Because do we have a goddess of rain? We probably do at this point, and it's just a god that I'm not thinking of right now, or a goddess rather that I'm not thinking of right now. But still, this is a nice opportunity, and I'd like Hi-Rez to take advantage of it. Streakbok. Savrong, the heavenly smith, struck the Alotio stone, and the sparks that were emanating from the stone after he struck it, and the wind that he spawned as he swung the hammer through the air, created Stringbok, god of wind, storms, and the weather, both good weather and bad weather. His winds would ensure the health of pretty much any living being that felt them, be they animal, human, so on and so forth. He never stops moving, because the wind pretty much never stops moving, and lives far away from the gods, at the end of Prav. He's an old man with a long beard, white hair, and wields a golden bow in battle. He carries a horn that he can use to summon the winds, and his grandchildren are these winds that are spawned. There is no defense against the wind, which is why he was prayed to so much, or considered to be such a powerful and significant deity by a lot of people, especially when the Slavs went to war. Of course he's going to be a hunter because he's pretty much mentioned having a bow in his lore, so if he does come to Smite, expect him to be a hunter. Quite frankly, there's only one hunter I think that has a really interesting kit, and that's All, but I have a strong bias towards All, so there's that. But still, old man, so he could have some pretty funny voice lines that aren't super annoying or cringy like Jingwei's. Overall, pretty nice god that I'd like to see. We have Zinitra, or Zir. This was a black god who could be typically seen on flags of the Slavic people, and I mention them because their name means magically empowered. Black dragon, magically empowered, dragon sorcerer. That's pretty unique. I mean, if you want to consider Noir a dragon sorcerer, pretty much give you a disappointed look, because whilst Noir could be considered a dragon, she technically is in her lore, but she has one skill that would even possibly suggest that she's a dragon, and she can only use that once every 100 seconds anyway, unless you get cooldown items. And even then, to represent her dragon element, it is kinda meh in that sense. I mean, can do the job. It does have a fairly powerful ability on paper, even though it's kind of meh in the game. A dragon sorcerer sounds pretty unique. I've only seen that in one game, I think, that comes to mind, and is actually another reason why I wanted to mention this god, because it gives me a reason to play Dark Souls and put it in the video. A dragon sorcerer, there's a lot you could do with that. It's another one of these gods, and there's actually more gods like this in that Hi-Rez has free reign to experiment with them, because the nature of Slavic mythology is that there isn't necessarily that much information about the mythology, because a lot of it was lost thanks to history, and Christianity kind of sort of taking over the pantheon, the religion. Like the Mayan pantheon, Norse pantheon to a degree, and some other pantheons in Smite, gives Hi-Rez the freedom to experiment and explore with their god kits for these Slavic gods a lot more. So it's a great pantheon for them to include just for that reason alone. Bringing us on to our next god, Suds, the god of glory and destiny. We really don't have that many gods of destiny, and most of the gods and goddesses in this video make sense for Smite in terms of they could actually do something decent to help with the battlefield, minus the first pick. I'll admit I picked her purely for the reason I explained. But aside from her, the other picks that I've chosen for, gods that could be included in Smite genuinely would be useful in a scenario of battlegrounds of the gods. Suds, Glory, and Destiny? There's a lot Hi-Rez could do there. They could make this god a warrior, give them a semi-supporting role, or even a warrior, make them a warrior and give them a bunch of combat buffs, a bit like Achilles, Nike, or Bellona, and how, some of their kits have passively giving buffs to either themselves with, Bellona's ult, or allies with Bellona's ult again. So there's that, or they could go the Destiny route with it, and with that, could easily be a Guardian, easily be a Mage, easily be an Assassin. So those are 3 archetypes right there. Very nice god for Hi-Rez to include. Next up we have Pelens or Peklensk. This was a god of the underground and also considered to be a divine judge. Now, he could start earthquakes just by ordering water that was underground to rise up and touch the surface. He gave every person he judged a chance for redemption, but also carried wicked people, or especially wicked people, just around with him, just because he could, apparently. He had different manners of punishment for the people that he punished. To the cruel, he turned them into stones, like Medusa, but less angry, I suppose. For those who were easy to start some sort of quarrel, argument, or trouble along those lines, he'd turn into werewolves, which honestly doesn't sound too bad, to be honest. For the compassionless, he turned into hungry beasts that would literally just start to eat themselves to death. Or not necessarily to death, but just eat themselves. Death is implied. And for the last people that just couldn't recover from their mistakes, learn from whatever it was that they did wrong, he would either outright slay them or vaguely, this is written, punish them. And also, it doesn't stop there. You see, remember when I said he could create earthquakes? Well, further with the whole earth manipulation stuff, he could make ravines or fissures in the earth just to punish groups of people. So there's a lot Hi-Rez could do with just that. Easily, he could be a guardian, a warrior, a mage, or an assassin outright. I definitely wouldn't want to see this god as a hunter, purely because it seems like he'd have so much potential just as a god kit. As an assassin, which Hi-Rez. I know on Twitter, I think it was Ajax that mentioned that you released gods based on what you think's cool and what you think we'll enjoy, so your priority isn't necessarily given certain pantheons what they might need as far as a class, i.e. the Celtic pantheon won't necessarily be given an assassin just to give them an assassin, but the last assassin released was Dagi. I'm guessing also part of the reason you don't like to make assassins is because people complain about them the most or something along those lines. That's just my assumption. Assassins are usually the types of characters complained the most about in games, from what I see. So it makes sense as to why you wouldn't necessarily want to just give yourself that hassle. We need some assassins, and this guy could clearly be a very interesting assassin to make up for the fact that we've barely had any. Clearly, he could also be a pretty decent guardian. In fact, in the Guardian role, that could probably make it easier in terms of just tying in his lore and making all of that make sense. But again, as mages seem to work for almost any god you could imagine in this game, even warrior gods, I'm sure, except for demigods, the mage archetype seems to be able to just be so universally accepting that it could work for almost any god in this game, I think. But I feel like that's a discussion for another video. So, moving on. Marovit was a god of nightmares. Feels pretty self-explanatory as to why he should get a place here. First and foremost, nightmares. Very useful in the battlegrounds of the gods, no? If you can make your enemy, even if they're a deity, terrified to fight you, they're not really going to want to fight you. We also don't have that many gods that use the fear mechanics, so from that standpoint, it could be fairly fresh. Not in terms of bringing a new mechanic to the game necessarily, or they could do that, but just as a mechanic that's fairly underutilized, there you go, that could be awesome. Making them an assassin feels like almost a prerequisite, because God of Nightmares, while it could be easy to make them a mage, we already have a goddess following that archetype for hunters, being Izanami. While it's not necessarily technically Goddess of Nightmares, she kind of does follow that aesthetic, and a lot of her skins kind of following those sort of darker themes, especially that doll skin. So Maravit, and this is a god, of course, so definitely a good avenue to make them an assassin, or if not, a mage assassin, but a pure assassin would be nice. If you enjoyed the video, go ahead and leave a like. If you're new to the channel and want to see more videos just like this, well, you only need to hit that subscribe button. It's red, and it's beautiful, and it's probably calling to you. Click it. And of course the notification bell. Until the next video, though, have a very good day. I have been Rhyme, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.